Good evening. It's 7:30, and I herewith call the November 19th City of Gaithersburg Historic District Commission meeting to order. And I'd like to start with a roll call, starting on my left.
Trudy Schwartz, Community Planning Manager.
Frank Johnson, Assistant City Attorney.
Read Sally White.
Mary Jo LaFrance.
Chris Kurtz.
John Roddy.
Mark Feinstein.
Dean Ventola.
Chris Berger.
Well, we have a quorum, so we are in order, and so let us begin. We have two sets of minutes.
Do you want to read the opening statement?
Oh, sorry. Even though, I guess that is optional, right, Frank?
It is optional, but it's entirely
I love to
up
read it. Thank you.
A dramatic
But-
reading.
Yes. This commission is empowered to meet and act under Article 12 of the City Code of Gaithersburg. The technical qualifications of the staff of the commission and the members of the commission are on file with the City of Gaithersburg, are available on request to any applicant, and are hereby made a part of the legal record of each and every application heard this evening. Each application heard this evening is considered on its own merits and is not to be considered as establishing a precedent for any other application. Okay, thank you. And so again, the first item of order is approval of minutes, and we have two sets of minutes to approve, the first being September 24th, 2015. So let's start there, and then we'll move to October. So has everybody had an opportunity to look at them? All right.
Yes.
Any comments, suggestions, edits? All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Can we split them?
Yes, this is just September 24th.
Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 24th, 2015.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition?
I have to abstain.
Abstain,
I wasn't here.
abstain.
Okay, are you abstaining as well?
Correct.
All right. So we have two abstentions. Chris, please notice that, Mark, and John Roddy. Okay. All right, now let's move ahead. The second set of minutes is from October 28th. I will be abstaining on that as I was not present at that meeting.
I will be abstaining as well.
Okay, Rosalie. All right, for those commissioners present who were at that meeting, any comments? John, did you have something on that?
And then just a motion that we approve them.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and Chris, you kept track of who was
Yes.
whom?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, then our area of substantive business tonight is the review of a historic area work permit adding snow guards over on Firehouse Lane. So Chris, any presentation from staff?
Yeah, I do. The building at 321 Firehouse Lane was constructed in about 1960. It was built out of the remnants of a carriage house which stood on the site, which dated to about 1900. It's a colonial revival 5-bay, 2.5 story building. It was built of concrete block and clad with red brick veneer. The building features a side gabled roof clad with painted corrugated metal panels. A small white side gabled ventilator with weather vane adorns the peak of the gabled roof. It was individually designated in 2012. In accordance with Section 24-227A of the City Code, a historic area work permit is required for work on a designated historic resource before constructing, reconstructing, moving, relocating, demolishing, or in any manner modifying, changing, or altering the exterior features of any designated historic site or historic resources located within the city. The applicant seeks to install 88 snow guards on the roof to prevent ice from falling in large blocks. The applicant would like to place them at each downslope. So there's 2 rows of 22 here, and I'll go back to the original aerial so you can see there'll be 44 on this side, 44 on this side. And I have a sample snow guard which I can pass around so you get an idea of the size. Each metal guard is decorated with a V-shaped notch and indentation. The snow guards will be painted forest green to match the color of the metal roof. No snow guards will be placed on the detached garage roof. And these are close-ups of the roof as it currently exists of 321 Firehouse Lane. The proposed snow guards appear to meet the guidelines provided within the Historic District Guidelines for the Brooks Russell Walker Historic District and individually designated sites. Snow guards are present on most of the Kentlands Old Farm buildings, including the building here. This is the Kentlands Mansion. The metal roof, you can't really see them too well, but there's snow guards around the edge here. And then this is the Kentlands Citizens Assembly Building. They have snow guards on their roof here. This is the Arts Barn, of course. You can't really tell here as well, but they are along the edge of the downslope here. And also they have some on the metal roof here and over on this portion as well. And also the DPZ offices, they have snow guards as well. And there's a close-up of the snow guards on the DPZ offices. The owner is not here, but I can answer any questions you may have.
Alrighty, well, I guess, Frank, we don't close the record until we vote, or,
That's entirely up to you, but effectively, when you make your final decision, the record is automatically closed anyway.
gotcha.
So,
Alright, well, let's just start with ladies first. Any discussions, thought?
No, I think it's, I mean, the argument is pretty powerful. There's nothing I oppose about it.
Okay.
Seems like a safety feature to me. Thank you, Chris, for the sample. That was a big help.
You're welcome.
I'd only offer that I have a standing seam roof on part of my house, and there have been times it's been rather entertaining when the snow melts and comes down.
Amen.
So
Yes.
I would say it's especially important for a safety aspect where it involves the stairs. So, absolutely.
Mark?
I have no objections to it.
Dean?
I have absolutely no objections, but I do have several questions. The pattern that you have on the roof, I can clearly see, I think it's on page 6. What is the on-center of them? That is, here's where I'm going with my question. If you look at the detailing or the location of them on page 8, look at the sample.
Which building are you talking
That's
about?
perfect,
Okay.
that one right there. The big key here is that they've got the guards aligned with the seams, which looks very nice. What I'm worried about is, I'm not majorly worried, but what I'm worried about when I see the pattern without knowing how it conforms to the seams, what I'm concerned mildly about is that some will land on a seam, some will land off a seam, and some, if they're on the seam, you really can't put it on a seam. It may be a haphazard organization of these, or that is not as rhythmic as they're showing. Don't have a major concern of it, but I guess I just have a question. Do you know what the seam OC is, and do you know what the pattern of the guards will be?
I don't have that answer. If that's something you're concerned about,
I believe they were all to be on seams. They're not,
Okay.
none of them will not be on a seam.
Oh, okay, perfect.
If I can answer that, I think,
Sure.
give a comment on it, I think the industry practice is to put those on seams when you have
Okay.
a standing seam
All right.
roof, otherwise you will risk leaks.
Okay, because I thought I saw photos where they were not on the seams. Because putting them right on a seam, because the seam has height.
Those are area, not within, those are buildings are in the area, not necessarily.
This one. It just looks like one. I'm looking at the photos on page 5. It just does look like there's a standing seam. But again, I'm not very much concerned on it, but that was something that came to mind.
It seemed to you they might be unseemly.
Very good, very good.
Okay.
The other thought too is, because these are anodized aluminum, they're going to be painted, I think we probably should put in some thoughts on them being properly prepped and primed before they just paint them. Because if they just paint them as they are, give it a couple of years, it'll just wear off and it will look unseemly.
Okay.
All right?
And
Those are
any-
my only thoughts.
All right, thank you. Any other thoughts? So let's close the record, and actually, we need a motion to close the record, eh?
Yeah, if you want to
Okay.
close the record before a decision, it should
Well,
be by motion.
how about
Correct.
if I entertain a motion to approve the application and
Point of order.
simultaneously close the record?
You might want to ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak.
Ah, forgive me, madam, I so apologize.
I didn't think so, but we need to ask
No,
that as a point.
listen, it is absolutely true. We, honest to goodness, we work for you, so thank you, and I truly apologize.
We did not.
You look so professional, I assumed you were a reporter, but
Taking notes.
just, okay. Well, we're delighted to have you here. These are your tax dollars at work.
I see, you're working real hard too.
Did we check for conflicts of interest yet?
We did not. Do we have any conflicted interests here?
No.
Okay.
I just want to know that I am a neighbor, 6 houses
Aha.
down.
Aha. But you don't,
No.
you don't have some bias for or against snowbirds?
No, I
Okay.
mean-
All right.
I had no knowledge of the application
Okay.
until I reviewed it
Very good. Okay.
once Chris sent us the link.
Well, to be on the side of the angels, the chair is open to a motion to close the record before we have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, the record is now closed, and the chair is certainly open to a motion to approve the application or the permit as submitted.
I can make a motion, but I would like to add a caveat.
Oh, of course.
Okay. I motion to approve HIST-7180-2015 to allow the snow guards on the roof as shown in the diagram with the condition that they are properly prepped and primed before they're painted and installed.
Okay,
I second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The snowbirds have it. Okay, well, our next is a discussion of historic preservation elements in the city master plan. Frank, is that going to be your purview? Who's going to
No,
speak to that?
I think
I'll give a brief introduction.
Okay.
Chris and
very
Trudy
good.
might be,
All right,
So
but I'm here to help.
okay.
we brought this forward at the last month's meeting, and we are beginning the process to update the master plan.
Uh-huh.
And we would like input from the HDC on the objectives and actions we have the existing objectives and actions on the screen now. These are from the master plan approved in 2007. So we began an initial discussion last month, and we addressed Objective 1 and Objective 3, but we're certainly open to any more input on those two objectives as well as the remaining 4 other ones. There's 6 in all. So we are hoping to get some insight what needs to be changed, what needs to be added, what needs to be removed, anything like that. And this is the beginning, like I said, of an ongoing process. So we're certainly going to be updating the HDC throughout. So.
And so this was initiated at last,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
let me defer to my fellow commissioners. Let me start on the right with you, Dean, and are we going to have a chance to massage it after tonight, Chris?
absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, again, let me defer, since I was not here last month and have not looked at them in detail. Any commissioners have any thoughts so far?
No, I don't.
Was I correct in my assumption about the proposed Old Town Heritage District?
Yeah, I couldn't find anything on that. Trudy, I don't know if you were able to find any mentions about the Old Town Heritage District, but
No, I'm wondering, we had a greater historic district where we did some improvements throughout the Old Town area. We narrowed some of the roads and widened some of the sidewalks, did some plantings, and we did some speed humps, I think is the proper term. But that was the only thing that I could think of. Um, But we'll keep looking.
I know the discussion at the last meeting was that it may have referenced the idea of physically moving buildings from one location to another, and that never
That's
came.
what I remember.
It was a
Right.
proposal that
Yeah.
never came about because it was just decided not to be feasible.
Right.
Either that, or even if it was feasible or possible, nobody came up with the 6 figures often needed to move a building.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the items in red are the only ones that were discussed.
All right, can you
Last time.
scroll forward to number 3?
Well, we
Sure.
discussed each of the objectives.
Yes.
Those were the only additions that
That-
we,
Or
Yes,
deletion.
I
Yeah.
thought that, yes, that's what I was trying to imply, that, yes.
Uh-huh, okay.
So there is an addition to objective 3.
Yeah, enhanced signage.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay.
so we're on objective 4, if you want to,
How can you improve on perfection?
that's tough, it's tough.
Before we leave 3, let me ask, if you look at the last sentence, if you will, do we still refer to it as Old Town Day?
No, that is a good point.
Oh, yeah, that's
Celebrate
right.
Gaithersburg.
Okay, Chris, will you?
But it was.
Yeah, I'll correct
yeah,
that.
Good catch.
Yeah. Although some of us would like it to go back to that.
So move.
Looks good.
So should we talk specifically about objective 4?
Yes, please.
I mean, I don't really have anything specific to, to talk about, but I just was trying to guide the conversation if there's anything. I mean, I read through it and did not see anything that jumped out at me.
No.
Yeah.
Yep, looks fine.
Okay, are there objectives after 4?
Yep, there's 5 and there's 6 after this as well.
I mean, some of this on 5 has already been completed. Like the interpretive park.
Right. I think we need to still do number 2. That actually is handled by our Parks, Recreation, and Culture, and I think we as staff need to check in with them and see what's going. But certainly, they have done a lot of promotional activities for the observatory.
And then just still in the observatory heights, there's no HPAC anymore, so, and there's a couple references to HPAC.
Oh, yeah. Very good catch.
That should be changed. There is one for Realty Park, mentions HPAC as well.
Okay. Chris, you're going to make a note of that? Okay.
Yes.
I guess my final comment was on the Nike site, since that is already kind of deep into planning at this point, and
That actually is not the Nike site. It is the control, it was the control building for the Nike site, as
Okay.
opposed to the Nike site, which is at a different location. But I think that's a good thing to add to the list, though, what now we call the consumer safety, consumer product safety.
CPSC,
Yeah,
Consumer
that-
Product Safety Commission.
Yeah, we ought to add that, and I would think encourage interpretive signage or some way to let people know about the history of that site, too.
especially as it's going to be a public park at this point, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
and Chris is on the committee, the ad hoc committee for that part.
Now, I think I'm definitely, my question is related to the actual master planning exercise as it relates to looking at it in the future. Are we at any point going to take into consideration sites that could be designated?
That's certainly something we would include as an action item, and I think under Objective 5 would fit for something like that.
'Cause, I mean, I think there's Summit Hall for sure listed, but I think that there's other sites around Gaithersburg that should be taken a closer look, because there's several sites that have now become designatable time-wise. So I think that it's worth just laying out a map and pointing those out.
Do you have any specifics in mind?
I would love to designate the National Geographic building. So.
And I can't think of the language, I don't know why it eludes me, but it's essentially a protective boundary around historic districts to prevent certain encroachment. What is that
A
called?
view shed? View shed?
The
No,
buffer?
yeah, buffer zone. I think that we absolutely need to get in writing somewhere, whether it's in here, whether it's in our historic guideline code, something to protect all of our historically designated resources with some kind of protective boundary. And another thing I would really like to look at, and this is more of a sort of a personal thing, as you know, I live in the Chestnut Historic District. The gateway to our neighborhood has this lovely tiny little sign and some flowers saying who we are. And then right across on the far corner to the left of us, the commercial building that resides there has two huge signs. And although it's all right with city code now, I don't believe it should be. And I think the signage rules for Old Town and for our historic districts should be the same. Because visually, it's incredibly unattractive to see
Well,
these
we could
awful-
have a larger sign for the historic district. It's a matter of investment funding.
Well, I think
You're talking
if
about
I-
less the historic district sign and more the removal of the other sign.
I'm
Yeah,
actually talking about guidelines for any commercial business within a certain amount of feet of a, historic district. So like in Old Town, there are certain signage rules that's got to be low to the ground, and they have to be only so high and so wide. I believe it should be exactly the same in the historic districts as well.
if you're adjacent to historic district,
Yeah.
I definitely am with you, because I do, like when I drive that, there's a lot of those industrial buildings who have like ginormous
For
signs.
lease, this and that, and oh my goodness.
But-
Yeah.
So like you have this paradox of very quaint historic community, like cat a corner from this industrial like thing, and I think it's worth visiting it for sure.
So is that what you mean really by the buffer you're talking about is primarily
I think
related to that? or-
it's two subjects, one signage, two buffer, but they can work together.
There's no, once you're currently in the city, once you're outside the district, there's no, I mean, there's nothing of that sort, correct, at this point?
Okay, I
That
understand.
as specifically for that corner, but once you get across the railroad tracks, then you get into
Then you're in Old Town.
into the CBD district, and so then you have the different sign guidelines.
So it's just kind of a
It's
no
kind of-
man's land between
Right.
the historic district and the CBD.
It's,
Right.
and
That's
it's literally
correct.
just a small parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess several parcels, but
And the other thing is that we were told when we had the brick sidewalks added that the city wanted a visual connection between its historic districts and the city. So I think that that would flow with that kind of thinking. And it would also be conducive to walking tours and some of the other things that we're reading here that we would like to do or are doing.
Ready for objective 6?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we-
Oh, there is
anything
no
more on
objective
five?
6.
Good points, all.
This is just a continuation of objective 5.
Did anything ever happen with the Wilson Hall?
Well, when the Asbury annexed into the city, there was an annexation agreement, and the annexation agreement said that the city would not designate their property. So right now, there's a binding agreement with the mayor and city council saying that we can't do that designation. But they certainly keep it well maintained, so that's encouraging, because for a while they were not utilizing it as much, and now they're back to using it, so.
I guess most of the Crown Farm bullets here have either already happened or beyond being able to happen.
I'll let Chris answer that.
Yeah, there seems to be some movement lately. I don't know if any of you have been out there lately, but they have expressed a desire to clean up some of the debris that's open in some of the buildings there, all the tires and drums, and there's a lot of lumber. So I went over there yesterday and photographed what I think should be retained, some parts of the former log tenant house that should be kept in case they need pieces of that, and so hopefully they fix that up soon and get those properties ready for their next life.
I'm curious about the reuse of all of those.
Eventually the plan is to make the properties that include the garage storage building and the silos and the corn crib, it's going to be a city park. What kind of city park, that's to be determined, but that's the long-term plan.
I guess the log cabin, or
Yeah, those are on a private, those will remain in private ownership. According to the annexation agreement, I think they have until the 150th building permit is issued for Crown's Neighborhood 2 and 3, and they have to sell that parcel by then, and I believe they're getting relatively close.
Yes.
So
And they've been doing some work on the house.
they had some vandalism there, some broken windows in all 3 of the buildings, so they did secure that. I was over there yesterday, and it's definitely secure, so that shouldn't be an issue anymore.
I feel like the log cabin is just a tragic story.
Yes,
You know,
indeed.
there.
Yes, indeed.
The dairy barn is another tragic story.
It predates you, Chris.
Yeah.
We just had we had an application that literally covered it, and I think none of us were happy with it.
Right.
Now it's just going to be in a private ownership, so who knows what they'll do with the inside? Nobody will know.
Well, I can certainly add the information that you provided and update a lot of this document and come back with a revised objectives and actions for our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Any other thoughts at all from any commissioners on the master plan?
I guess I was just going to remind us that there's some historic designations that we have made since then, I guess, suppose need to be added then.
Crown Farm is one verse.
And
for sure.
Kentlands, too.
Yeah,
And
Kentlands,
Kentlands.
yeah.
Well, this is just, we wanted to start in objectives and actions.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to the other parts of the master plan. But we thought it would be kind of good to look at the objectives and actions, then look at the other parts of the master plan, and then come back again and look at the objectives and actions.
Okay.
All right, thank
That's
you.
fine.
Any updates from staff?
Yeah, we have a few. 2 weeks ago, myself and Commissioner Wyke attended the National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference in Washington, D.C. The biggest trend that really stood out for me is the idea of heritage businesses. These are businesses defined as being around for 30 years or longer. And there's an effort now to look beyond just the buildings, the historic buildings, but look at the businesses that are inside these buildings. And there was an effort recently in San Francisco that they passed a proposition to provide funding for these businesses that have been around for a while and quickly gentrifying neighborhoods to try to keep them in place. So I don't know if anything like that applies in Gaithersburg, but it seems to be a trend in preservation. I attended 2 field sessions. One was a historic building assessment practicum at the Octagon House, which is near the White House. I attended that because I think it's something that down the road we would need a historic building assessment report for Summit Hall. So it was a good idea to see what that's all about. I also attended a tour of Alexandria. There are 2 locally designated historic districts. One, of course, is the Old Town Historic District. They're putting up a flood control system along the river, and they're also doing a lot more connectivity along the river. There are pathways and parks. The other was the Parker Gray Historic District, a more working class neighborhood. And they recently had a push to try to de-designate that neighborhood. Some residents inside thought that the Historic District Commission there was overreaching its bounds. So that was kind of interesting to see how they were able to defend that. And they have a lot of infill projects there right now. So it's good to see how these projects fit in with the other historic resources. Commissioner Weick, I don't know if you have anything to add from your
Absolutely.
comments.
I think I only share one presentation with Chris, and it was very interesting because it was definitely focused on the preservation of business and the adaptive reviews of buildings for any given practices. And there were several very interesting entrepreneurial ideas that are working primarily in Detroit. I was very excited to see what they're doing and just having the community be very engaged with that process. I attended a field session, and it was about the Main Streets, National Main Streets program. It was focused on 2 neighborhoods that were deeply affected by the riots in 1967. That were, and after the riots, apparently, there. I learned that a couple of sites just burned for like months, and most of
Yes,
these 2 neighborhoods, H Street Northwest and Shaw, were just basically abandoned and forsaken for years and years. And so the Main Streets program for Washington, D.C. identified those 2 communities as a focal point, and they both have nonprofit organizations from that have sprung from the community that are people very, very engaged, and they have worked, done an incredible work. I truly encourage all of you to visit A Street Northwest and Shaw. What they've been able to do with those neighborhoods and in terms of revitalization, adaptive reviews of amazing buildings that were able to be kept. And not only that, they've been able to, the models that they use in order to keep businesses in that have been there for 30 years, like Chris was saying, just they work with each one of those people, and we walk into several of those businesses. Particularly in Shaw, we walked into a hairdresser who had been there for forever, and so they work with her. They moved her to a site within the same street until her building was rebuilt, and they work with different incentives so that they could retain that. And there was a really, really big push in both communities to retain those heritage businesses, and a lot of signage, a lot of just making sure that the street presence is still there. Festivals, they've instituted a great amount of ideas and incentives in order to get the community excited about it, and the results have been overwhelming. They have literally outsmarted the market. So it was very, very good to see.
Nice.
Thank you, Bob. Great
Beautiful.
updates.
Another
else?
update on 31 Walker. We've had a few commissioners inquire about the work order, which was put in place earlier this week. The owner made a few alterations, again, that were not approved by HDC and should have. So a stop work order was put in place earlier this week, and I'm going to meet with him on site next week, and hopefully we will have a historic area work permit on file for those changes. And I mentioned last month that we may have a meeting next month in December, may need to have a meeting, and it looks like that's going to happen. So hopefully we have a quorum available December 16th, which is a Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a pen somewhere. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, because, I didn't know if I wanted to raise it on the air, but yeah, trying to figure out what's going on there, and I'm assuming the staff will work with the applicant as they will with any applicant. I mean, certain things like, putting in a window well or something, which, of course, we have three professionals sitting on the dais here, but, in my view, working with old buildings, there are things called field changes, where there's been no bad faith, but when you actually get to something and you see the terrain or the contour, whatever it is, oh my gosh, well, we've got to slope this, or we've got to put some gravel in, and so I'm assuming that there's that kind of good faith give and take.
Yeah, the building inspector department will be on the on-site visit with me as well.
And certainly, we met with the applicant several times before that stop work order was issued.
Good. Well, that was what I was hoping and figured. I mean, because I know how hard everybody worked, so it didn't go down, and well, that's good. And so you'll update us, and yet I gather one of the major issues is going to be, was that cement pad, whether permanent or not, is it put in a correct professional manner such that whoever ends up with the property is not going to have it perturbating.
And it meets the city code.
Runoff is the problem too, if it's slipped the wrong way, correct?
Right. All right, well, thank you. Anything else from staff? All right, how about from commissioners? What for the good of the order? Well,
Okay.
Good.
as much fun as this is on a Thursday night,
I move
with
we
sorrow, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Well, got one.
Maybe just before you do that, one thing that did occur to me when we were talking about Objective 5, and I guess more for Chris, is as you're updating that, one of the points you did make was to look at additional historic designations, and it was kind of in the midst of what else you were saying, as time changes, in other words, as properties age, because we're not necessarily limited to looking at 1910 or 1920, 50 years ago,
Yeah,
which
very good point.
actually I don't like to admit goes back even to the early 60s now. So,
But that's a good
Just for
point,
various
and
purposes.
certainly, thank you, Frank, good catch. That would be certainly something to have in the objective, that it, as that window, the definitional window of time goes on, that is, by design, we're going to continue to look if things become appropriate.
Well, I think actually that is covered. It says we'll strive to expand the focus on future districts.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it would be useful
And
if we
properties,
could-
maybe districts and properties.
right.
Exactly, to just
what
take
she
a
was-
look at what properties are within that range. I think at a 10-year mark of what is feasible, or we, as the commission, see as valuable to the city. Because, I mean, driving around Gaithersburg, there's a lot of homes and buildings that are not within these districts, and I think that could potentially, it would be useful to just visit it and look at the history and see if they merit preservation or not.
Some of you that have been on, now that we're getting back to this, I did have one question. There, on the very last one, it talked about including scenic roads, and I was,
Now, this is objective 5.
right, I was wondering if anybody remembered what scenic roads they were talking about that are in Gaithersburg, so.
Okay, what's left?
Well,
Right.
it's possible they were talking about the one that was the inspiration for John Denver's
Clopper.
song back in
Clopper Road.
1971.
Clopper Road.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
he said that before he died,
What?
yeah.
Really? And it
Yes.
wasn't even West Virginia?
He didn't write
No,
the song,
no,
it
no,
was
he-
the Starland Vocal Band, but,
Right.
Yeah, Starlight Vocal Band was driving up and he
Right.
started writing.
Dan
Yes.
Oss and Nivert were with him at the time, yeah.
yes.
Wow.
Clopper Road was the inspiration?
Yes.
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 However, it is
The
some
road we always
discussion,
took to get to my
it's
but
as
anyway.
to where on Clopper Road,
It would be from St. Rose's downhill
towards Germantown.
toward Germantown, yes.
Yeah, so it's not.
Wouldn't that be neat to have just a little bit of science recognizing that?
Sure would.
Why not? People like that
Unfortunately,
kind
it's
of
in the county.
Well, what a great
Yeah,
piece
it's
of
not
lore.
Gaithersburg proper, I was just
That's correct.
realizing.
stuff. Okay.
It's in
What?
the Gaithersburg Planning District, but not.
Well, while we're at it, then let me ask this question. The old site of the mill that's on, I think, Seneca's property, we cannot...
The Clopper Mill, that's not in the city, yeah.
That's what I thought.
What was this song again?
Country roads.
Country.
West Virginia.
Take me
Take me home, country.
No, I know, I'm just
But it
so.
starts from Copper Road.
We got
I
started
know.
singing it.
I don't see the connection.
No, it was
It was an inspiration.
I say it was the inspiration.
Alliteration.
Wikipedia, it's pretty interesting.
All you
That's
viewers,
so
what
License.
funny.
we do for you, viewing pleasure.
All four of them.
It was much more rural looking years ago.
It was
Going
also
back
much
25,
steeper on
30
your
years.
bicycle
Take
years
me
ago,
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
back in those
You're right.
historic 60s days.
Historic 60s.
Even in the 70s it was.
I'm staying out of this one.
Very well. Well, there is still an open,
I'll second.
reluctant request from the chair.
It was already.
I think-
I
It
would-
has been
second.
seconded?
I'll
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? By golly, we're adjourned. Thank you all very
Oh,
much.
thank you.